the essence of Teshuva. As we approach the Yom Noraim, let us examine a little bit about the Yesodis and the Amkas of Teshuva. The Pasuk says, and then the Parshas Nitzovim, Ha'idoisi v'chem hayoim es hashamayim v'es ha'oretz ha'chaim v'amam v'es nasati lefanecha brocha v'aklala uv'acharta b'chaim l'man tichi ata v'zarech. Ha'idoisi v'chem hayoim es hashamayim v'aretz. The shamayim, the heavens, v'aretz, the earth, they should be edim, they should be witnesses that I'm warning you today, I'm commanding you today. They should be witnesses. Why were they witnesses, the edim, the shamayim, v'aretz? Rashi says, Ha'idoisi v'chem hayoim es hashamayim. Why were they the Eidim? Why was the Shemaim? Rabbi Hashem says, look, the Klal Yisrael says, look at the heavens that I created to serve you. Did they change? Did they change their midah, their ways, their nature? The sun always rises in the east, it sets in the west. They do exactly as they were commanded. Did they change? Did they deviate? So how can you deviate? Did the land change? Did the Aretz change? Did it deviate? Did it not do as it was commanded? Did you plant wheat and did barley grow? The Shemaim, the Aretz, they do exactly as they were commanded. Now it's a Kal V'Chomer. The Shemaim, the Aretz, they're not going to get rewarded if they do as they're told. They're not going to get punished if they don't, and yet they do as they were commanded. And you, who are subject to reward and punishment, certainly Allah has come v'kama that you should do as you were commanded. So that's why the Shemaim and the Aretz, they were the Eidim to our Klal Yisrael. And of course, the obvious question is, yes, but the Shemaim and the Aretz don't have Bechira. They don't have a Yetzer Hara. So what is the analogy? What are we supposed to learn out from the Shemaim v'Aretz? They do exactly what we're told. This is Teva. This is nature. They don't have a Yetzer Hara. And of course, they don't get reward and punishment. Why? Because they don't have challenges. They're not faced with a challenge, but we are. So in what way is there an analogy to Shemaim v'Aretz? What are we supposed to learn out from this edus of the Shemaim v'Aretz? How does it all apply to us? The Nefesh Chaim says there's different levels of a person's makeup. There's the Nefesh, there's the Ruach, there's different layers, but the deepest layer of a person, his innermost level, the innermost level of a person is in the Neshama. And that Neshama is a Chelek Elokai Mimal. It's a part of the Rebbeinu Shalom Kivayachal. Now, through Averas, we can blemish the outer layers. The outer layers of our being can become tarnished through Averas. But not the inner core, not the Neshama Tahira. The Neshama is Torah. And that is always a Chelek Elokai Mimal. And that cannot be blemished. That cannot be tarnished. Our outer layers through Averas, Rachmanos, can, not the innermost layer. And the Amkus HaDvorim, therefore, is that we have a part of our makeup that is so pure, that is not really even subject to the Yetzer Hara. The outer layers are, of course, but there is an inner layer, that neshama tahira, that deep in the recesses of our soul, that is so pure that it cannot be tarnished by averas, and it's not subject, therefore, to the Yetzer Hara. And that is so pure. And therefore, the approach to Teshuva is to reach into that inner layer and to reveal what is really in the depths of our soul. And perhaps the lesson from the Shamayim V'Aretz is they cannot deviate. Well, there is a chelek, there is a component of our souls, there's a component of each yid that also cannot deviate. At his core, at a yid's core, he cannot deviate just like the Shamayim V'Aretz. He has an neshama tahira. And the Shamayim V'Aretz don't have reward and punishment, so our neshama tahira, we have reward and punishment. That component of our inner soul, that neshama, cannot deviate, just like the Shamayim V'Aretz, even more so. Shamayim V'Aretz have no reward and punishment, but we do. And therefore, certainly, we should learn from the Shamayim V'Aretz, meaning we should understand, come to the realization that we are a chelek elokayim yimal in the innermost recesses of our soul, and therefore we should try to, our avodah is to reveal that, to purify ourselves so that inner neshama can shine. And then we won't even have these nisyonos. And the nisyonos of the Yetzer Hara will no longer plague us. Like the famous memra of the Ibn Ezra, that Ibn Ezra says that in the Seres Adibris, it says, Lo sachmai. You shouldn't covet what belongs to your neighbor. You shouldn't desire what belongs to your neighbor. How can we be commanded not to desire something? That's part of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara entices us to desire other things. But look, Ibn Ezra, someone else's wife, someone else's possession should be so foreign to us that it shouldn't even enter our minds that this could belong to us or should belong to us. And therefore, it's beyond the realm of possibility. And therefore, we shouldn't desire it, and we won't desire it. People don't desire things that are impossible to attain and have no place in their lives. People don't have a nisyonos on not to walk into a furnace, to jump into a fire. There's no nisyon for that. Yetzer Hara entices people in all kinds of ways, but something that's so obvious and clear that it's destructive and detrimental to a person. A healthy person will have no Yetzer Hara to do something like that. A healthy person has no Yetzer Hara to jump off of a building without a parachute, without a safety net. Averas, leisachma, different types of averas should be so foreign to us that we have no desire for them. And they can be. They can be if we purify ourselves and we let that neshama tahira shine forward. Then we are capable of being above these nisyonos and be like the Shamayim V'Aretz, and even more so. There's a famous memoir from the Chazon Ish that says when a person comes to the realization of the Rabbeinu Shalom, when he comes wholeheartedly, with a full cognizance of the Rabbeinu Shalom, he's filled with simcha. He's filled with simcha and awareness. And Zog the Chazon Ish that people can, for short periods of time, in this world, even in this world, and even though they are people who have a goof, and they are gashmi, but they can, when they have this hakara of the Rebbeinu Shalom, they can be as malachim. They can be like a malach. A malach has no Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is not shoidlet on a malach. A person can become like a malach in this world. How does he do that? What's the approach to Teshuva that can let that neshama tahira shine forward, that allows us to be like a malach, that allows us to be like the Shamayim V'Aretz that don't deviate. that have no Yetzer Hara, no desire, and no possibility, no ability to deviate and not listen to the Ribbono Shel Olam. That's if we have no separations, no chatzitzas, nothing that separates us and interferes with our overwhelming desire to do tshuva and to come close to the Ribbono Shel Olam. The Pasuk says, Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. The Gemara in Yuma says that Ma Mikveh Metar Eschem. Just like a mikveh is matar you, Hashem, the Ribbono Shel Olam, is matar as well. Well, we can learn from this. How is a mikveh matar? A mikveh is only matar if a person immerses himself in the mikveh, is completely immersed, and there's no chatzitzah, there's no barriers. There are no barriers between him and the water, and he's completely immersed. That's when and how a mikveh is matar a person. Similarly, Hashem will be matar us. Mikveh Yisrael Hashem will be matar us. But we have to immerse ourselves completely in Avodas Hashem, in Avas Hashem, without chatzitzas, without barriers. And then the neshama tahara will shine forward. And that comes from doing and wanting to do the mitzvahs wholeheartedly and besimcha. That we rejoice that we can be Oved Hashem. It's not a burden. It's not something that we have to do, and not an interference with the other things that we want to do in life, with other priorities. It's something that we want to do wholeheartedly, and we have filled with simcha doing it. The famous mashal of the Dubna Magid, that he says in commenting on the pasuk, Ki lo yoisi karasi Yaakov ki agata bi Yisrael. You didn't call out to me, Yaakov, and Yaakov. You were weary of me, Yisrael. He says the mashal, the famous mashal of Dubna Magid, there was a seicher that came to a town. He was a merchant dealing in precious stones. So he spent a day at the market, and he went to his lodging, and a porter took his suitcases. He arrived at the inn, he arrived at the hotel, and the porter had to carry the suitcases up the stairs. Of course, in those days there was no elevators. He carried the suitcase up the stairs, and he was huffing and puffing and sweating, and it was suddenly the Seicha, the merchant, cried out that somebody stole my suitcases. I've been robbed. Somebody stole my suitcases. These are not my suitcases. And he hadn't even opened up the suitcases, and from the outside they looked exactly the same as his. So they asked him, how do you know? They opened up the suitcases, and they were filled with stones, boulders, worthless stones. Someone had stolen his precious stones and replaced it. How did he know? He said, because I have precious stones. They're not heavy. They're delicate. You're schlepping and carrying up these suitcases and huffing and puffing and sweating. These are not mine. He knew right away that if you're Yagata, if you're having all this effort, they're not mine. Similarly, the Rebbe says, if it's Yagata, if you're having so much effort, and it's a burden on you, and it's so heavy, you didn't call out to me. You're not calling out to me. If you're really calling out to the Ribbono Shel Olam, it's not a burden. If we are Oved Hashem b'simcha, because we want to, that's what we want to do in life. It's b'simcha. It's without chatzitzas, without barriers, without interference. Then the neshama tahara will shine forward. We have the ability, each one has the ability to be like a malach for a short time in this world. We have the ability to learn from the Shamayim v'Aretz that they will do the mitzvahs of Hashem without deviating, and do it wholeheartedly.